Hello, and thank you for joining me on this presentation where I'll be exploring 10 case studies in how other companies have been winning new business overseas. So I'll be exploring different customer acquisition tactics that companies, usually technology companies, have used, and especially that they've used in their early stage of development, whether it's startup or early phases. We'll look into what sort of outreach campaigns did they run? What sort of conversion tactics did they use to convert sales leads to close sales? How did they go about doing that? A quick background on me. So I've been an entrepreneur for more than 20 years with multiple businesses. My primary focus has always been around developing business overseas. So all of my businesses have been internationally focused from day one. I'm also a chartered director with the Institute of Directors and a startup mentor. You can learn more about me or contact me on my LinkedIn and email. To start off this presentation, the big challenge for many entrepreneurs is the fact that they are simply overwhelmed with the number of marketing tactics, strategies, opportunities, approaches that they could potentially take. This is what's known as the MarTech Stack, and this is just from 2019. But as you can see, these are all of the different products that you can buy. These are all the different ways to invest your marketing budget when it comes to things like advertising, promotion, content, social management, etc. It is absolutely overwhelming. I am a marketing guy, that is my training. I have owned a marketing agency, and even I find this stuff difficult, trying to decide as a startup, and especially a bootstrap startup, how do we spend our money to get our best bang for buck? How do we win our first international sales? We can't spend on all of this. We simply can't do it. So in this presentation, what I want to do is explore some of the case studies about how other successful companies have done it, especially in their early stages. And I've split the presentation into two phases. First of all, one around prospect engagement, which essentially is demand generation. And then the second few case studies will be around how to convert sales leads to close sales. The reason I'm emphasizing the demand generation piece so much is that I think it is underemphasized in any training courses for entrepreneurs. If you don't have any sales inquiries or sales leads, you don't have anything to close. And if you don't have closed sales, then you simply don't have a business. So no matter how effective your value proposition is, your mission statement is, no matter how great you are financially, if you're not generating sales leads, you do not have a business. In fact, you're going out of business faster than you realize. And that's something that's not emphasized much. So with that in mind, today I'm going to look at what is actually working for companies. We're not just going to look at best practices, because really best practice is great, but show me the money. What's actually working in the field right now? And right now is important, because what worked 10 years ago, what worked 3 years ago, is possibly not working now. So we need to keep our finger right on the hot button of what's actually happening at the moment to drive new business. Just to manage some expectations, I could have put together 50 case studies here, but again, that's just overwhelming. And what I'm trying to do here is make it a little easier for entrepreneurs, not overwhelm you. So I'm just going to look at 10 select case studies, but I've also included links to all of these case studies. So the goal of this presentation essentially is to pique your interest, and if there's something that you think, hey, that might work for us, then you can go and you can read about these case studies and explore them in more depth. The reality So the answer from all of these case studies is it's going to be a few different things that come together. You don't have to do everything, but there is no single silver bullet. There's a few different things, and we'll look at some of the different things that have worked. But most importantly, take the lean startup methodology to all of this. You want to experiment with a few things in a very small scale with a very small budget. You'll want to measure the results from that. You'll want to cull, cancel, kill the ones that simply aren't working, and then you'll want to invest in the ones that are showing a bit more promise. So this is not going to be simple for you. I'm sure you already know that. The key thing is to don't go with the big bang approach of choosing one single thing, betting your whole marketing budget on that. That's not going to work. Take the lean startup approach. Very small experiments, very concise, clear, insightful measurement, and then being ruthless at killing the marketing activities that are not delivering and investing instead in the ones that are showing promise. I've got to make a couple of assumptions here as well before we move on. I've got to assume that you are a professional and you have been through the whole entrepreneur process in training or something like that. You've got your product market fit already established. If you don't have that, you're not ready to go to market. You've already tested your value proposition and it has passed as being a compelling one. You hopefully already have a couple of customers won in the Irish market. It's pretty easy to win business in the Irish market. Everybody knows everybody. A friend of a friend will buy from you, but that's not real business. You can't scale at that level. So you have to have won a couple of friendly customers before you can start to get complete strangers to pay you for your solutions. Also, I'm making an assumption that you've gone through the process of clearly identifying your target market segments. You've built some buyer personas. So look, basically you've done your homework. If you haven't done your homework, don't try anything in these case studies because they won't work. Okay, first of all, let's look at some of the prospect engagement, essentially the demand generation or sales lead generation phase. I'm going to start with one of my favorite tactics and a favorite tactic of mine for over 20 years, which is search engine optimization. If you can get that right, that will just pay dividends for years to come. In this case study, I'm going to look at Canva because they have taken an interesting view on it. And again, it's one that has worked very well for me personally. So first of all, Canva, in less than 7 years, they got to 15 million users, 300,000 customers, and a 3.2 billion valuation. So something that they are doing very well. SEMrush actually estimates that just their SEO work alone is driving 5 million visitors to their website per month, and that's just in the US. So they're getting some great results. And one of the things that they're doing, look, of course, everybody wants to rank for their primary keyword and key phrase for their homepage, and that's a worthy and great goal of SEO. But if you want to get a bit more intelligent about it, one of the things that Canva does is they focus on the longer tail keywords. So as you can see here, things like business cards or poster maker or thumbnail maker, these are things that don't have the highest of search volumes, but they combined will bring in a huge amount of traffic, and Canva have the conversion tactics then in place to retain that traffic and ultimately to convert it to sales. Here's a link to the case study down the bottom. You'll see growthmanifesto.com, the Canva growth study. But that's something worth exploring if you are a believer in search engine optimization, if you think you have a decent handle on that, perhaps with your agency. And a personal example for me, one of my businesses is called the Channel Institute. And what we realized from doing some research was a lot of our potential customers, our target audience, they really wanted templates. So things like a channel partner business plan templates, other things like that. And what we've done is made sure that we're top of the search engines globally for those phrases. That brings in our target market. They may not be ready to buy straight away, but we have a good nurturing process in place, so we nurture them over time, and then we can actually see those sales conversions coming through. So somebody may have found our website 2 years ago when they were looking for a template or a tool. We then nurturing them, we can see their engagement over those 2 years, and then finally we can actually see, yep, that's when they bought. So it's taken that amount of time. So it's very much that Canva model. So certainly focusing on these long tail keywords, and hopefully none of our competitors at Channel Institute are watching this presentation. Content marketing is another one that I really love, and I think GrooveHQ are a good example and good case study of how this will work. They went from 0 to 5 million in revenue in a very short space of 3 years. And the majority of their growth was based around content marketing. One of the interesting things that they did was they didn't have all of the employees or directors sit around a table and come up with ideas themselves. They actually went out to the market and asked their existing customers and asked prospects, what is it that you wish you had? What insights do you wish you had? So once they got all of those questions answered, they were then able to really target their content, knowing that, okay, this is what people desperately want to know about at the moment, or perhaps these are some tools that they desperately would like to have for free. And if we can get that in front of them, they will engage, and then we can start moving on to conversion. So all of the answers that they got from their target market, first they turned them into blog posts. They made sure that these posts were telling a very compelling story that really engaged the audience, and then they made sure to have very effective nurturing and conversion processes in place. So again, I'm not going to go into every single detail of it. If something like this is of interest, and I do think content marketing should be, then go to the link below on GrooveHQ.com, and you'll be able to read more about that as a tactic. Building an ecosystem of channel partners is a very effective way of generating a high volume of sales with little work in the long term. So building out channel partners is very time and resource intensive in the beginning, but like SEO, over time that can really pay dividends. Xero is a good case study here, and again, if you go to growthmanifesto.com, you'll see the link below. You can explore it more, but there's nothing particularly new about this. They sell accounting and business management software, so guess what? They decided, well, if we go through accountants, that could be a very effective channel for us to rapidly build sales. And as you can see from the chart here, they certainly did build those sales rapidly. 350,000 users were built in 12 months. There's no way they could have achieved those results as a small company simply on their own, but by engaging the channel, suddenly they had lots of other people who had their existing market already in place, and they were able to bring those guys on board. So you will have a lower margin, of course, using channel partners, because you'll have to profit share with them, but in terms of getting your product out into the market rapidly, and especially overseas, that's a very effective way of doing it. HubSpot or another company you may be familiar with, and they've done a very similar model where essentially they go through marketing agencies. Their products make marketing agencies more effective. They also do license share with the marketing agencies as well. So if you can find channel partners that are prepared to do that work for you, if it makes sense for a certain segment of channel partners, then like Xero, this can be a very effective approach. A potentially interesting tactic for Irish companies comes from Box. Their approach was to identify high value influencers within their target companies. So people who had a strong influence on the decision making process for their solutions, and they gave those people free access in the hope that it would go viral, in the hope that it would encourage those influencers to spread the word and eventually convince the company to pay. And obviously, if enough people within a target company are using a technology solution, well, that makes it much more likely that it would work. And it certainly worked for Box. One company alone signed up 60,000 employees. But when you think of this from an Irish startup perspective, the Irish diaspora is a real asset that we have. And if you can identify key high value influencers within very specific companies that perhaps are Irish or of Irish descent, maybe they have joined different Irish networks, whether that's online or offline, LinkedIn or something else, maybe there is a way to initially break in there. So it's an interesting approach to at least consider. It's one that I guess most companies don't include as part of their key marketing strategy, but it certainly is worth consideration from an Irish perspective with our diaspora that is so closely linked and is global. Dropbox also had quite an interesting approach. This can only be used for certain types of companies, but I'm sure you're probably familiar with it and have seen other companies do it as well. This inviting your friends to use Dropbox and allowing customers to earn something free for that. So essentially, you're turning your own customers into salespeople who work on a commission basis to get free things from you. It worked extremely well for Dropbox. They grew 3,900%. So September 2008, 100,000 registered users, and December 2009, all the way up to 4 million registered users. And the key thing was that they kept the process extremely easy. There was a single form. You could enter in your friend's email address and so on and go from there. So again, I'm not going to go into this in huge detail here, but you can explore the case study at the link below from viralloops.com. Intercom had an interesting approach as well to paid search, and both SEO and paid search are very effective ways of winning international business, or certainly generating those first sales inquiries from international markets. And what they did was take an ultra granular approach. So again, it's moving away from this simplistic paid search thing where you pay for your major keywords and you blow your entire year's marketing budget in a single week. So focusing on the high buy intent keywords was really smart. They identified, out of all of the different keywords that we could buy, which ones really have a high indicator that this person is purchase ready or sales ready. So that enabled them to buy less traffic, so they spent less budget, but it maximized their return on investment because the probability that a visitor was going to buy was that much higher. They also did a couple of smart things. So for every one of those key phrases that they bought, they used a customized CTA. They had a different offer for each one and different free trials for each of those keywords. They also had live chat on each of those pages as well. So not only did they know these keywords had a high conversion potential, they also threw everything at it, customized the whole landing page and the offer, and even had people there waiting to engage these people. So again, the case study is here. It's worth exploring that little bit more detail. But again, in terms of winning international sales and getting those international inquiries, using that ultra granular approach may. And the final one on the demand generation one comes from ClickFunnels. Again, this can't be done for every company, but where you have a piece of software that is used by your customers, putting a little button on it made with ClickFunnels. I've seen lots and lots of companies do this, but it's a great way to help your product go viral. And if people see other people using your your product, well, that already adds to your credibility. So it moves you up quite a number of scores in terms of their decision-making criteria. So that is something that ClickFunnels used very effectively. You can see their growth rates over the years here. Any startup company would love to see that. And essentially what you're doing is you're turning your own customers into free advertisers. So it's an incredibly effective thing to do if you can get to it. Not for every company, but certainly if you think it might be appropriate for your startup, here's the case study. You can go to getlaka.com and learn more. But again, this will go viral way beyond Ireland. So if you can get it working, again, it's a good way to generate sales inquiries from overseas. Assuming then that some of these demand generation tactics have worked for you, you've then started to generate inquiries from overseas customers, complete strangers who don't know anything about you previously. Let's look at how you might be able to convert them to sales. What are other companies doing that has been working well? I'm sure you're familiar with Slack. Just look at these growth rates from 2014 to 2018. They're absolutely incredible. 0 to 5 billion in just 4 years. 77% of the Fortune 100 using their software. How did they do this? Well, the freemium model obviously is something that is very important for software companies, but it's not enough. And the way Slack got so high conversions on their freemium was they have a really strong onboarding process in place. So yes, word of mouth has been great at generating the initial inquiries and engagement, but they have a very robust onboarding process for these new customers. So they don't just bring a new prospect to their website and hope for the best. They have a very well thought out and tested process that makes sure to deliver the right information to this visitor at the time that they need it, and then keeps nurturing them over time, but not nurturing them with salesy stuff. It's with what the visitor actually needs. So prospects are really starting to get full in-depth use of the product, even at free trial phase, and they're onboarded to the point where they have so much capabilities, they are getting so much value from the product already that it's a natural process to simply go and convert and to pay the money. So again, I won't go into all of the details here, but it's an interesting one. It's one worth exploring if you are a software company, and the case study here is at sumo.com. Buzzsumo is an interesting example of a company that is expanding by minimizing churn. So once they've got a customer on board, or at least at free trial level, they are doing a lot of things to make sure that they don't lose those customers and can cross-sell them and upsell them on future licenses. They've got a huge focus on their existing customers, and they keep developing new value-added features in order to upsell those existing customers. Everybody knows that it's much easier to sell to your existing customers than to new customers, but the drop-off rates, this leakage of customers for many companies is extremely high. So that's what we call churn, and if you can minimize churn to the level that Buzzsumo do, well, then you've got a great way of consistently generating new revenue. Churn is the killer, and this is just interesting because there's a lot of lessons from this that you can use for free trials, and to make sure that you can keep your free trials engaged as well as your existing customers. So again, going to that buzzsumo.com website, and you can learn some more lessons from there. Our 10th and final case study in this presentation then is Autopilot, and again you can see just how quickly Autopilot have grown, 21% month-on-month revenue growth, and look at these trials and customer numbers. The case study is below. It's from growthmarketingconf.com, where you can read more about it. This is a particularly interesting case study to wrap up on, though, because I think it pulls from both the Slack case study, where they were focusing on onboarding, but also the Intercom case study, where they were very focused on purchasing high buy intent keywords. So it's a really intelligent approach to getting the most out of your trials and getting the highest conversion rate from trials. Because if you've gone to all of this work to get visitors from the United States, Australia, UK, wherever it is, you've got them so far into it that they've signed up and taken a trial, then you really, really need to be converting these guys. And what Autopilot did was they very carefully and minutely monitored their trial usage. So where was a visitor in the stage of the trial? What areas of functionality were they using on the trial? And they were able to identify certain moments that they identified as key aha moments. And that was a great big red flag that said this customer has got that aha, that eureka effect in their mind. They suddenly get our product. They suddenly understand how our product is really going to help them move forward. And this is the point where we know they have a very high probability of converting to paying customers. And you need to think about whether there's something like that within your own free trials. Is there some stage or is there some functionality that a user, when they get to that point at your freemium level or on your free trial level, that indicates to you, here is somebody who has a high probability of activating into a paying customer? And once you can identify that, then that's where you focus your marketing and sales spend, trying to progress more people to that particular stage of the journey. So asking yourself, what can we do within our freemium model or within our free trial model that can just get that person to these aha moments? If we can get them that far, then we know we're going to have a very high conversion rate on sales. So that's a really intelligent approach I thought Autopilot took, and it also brings in the elements of onboarding, helping your customers to really understand and get value from your product, even at the freemium stage or the free trial stage, but also using the intercom thing. Where is that really high indicator that this person is getting really ready to buy? So look, I hope you found these case studies useful. I tried not to overwhelm and do too much with this. It's more to whet your appetite, to give you a few ideas, and then help you identify where to go for further information and to explore it a little bit more. If you do have any suggestions, if you think there are things that I missed or things that I should have explored more, then please feel free to get in touch. This is only the first iteration of this presentation. I'll hopefully do more. So as we've seen in these case studies, your feedback is critical. If I can get this to a better product, please do let me know. Thank you for your time, and best of luck in your entrepreneurial journey.